Okay, hello everybody. Welcome back to our series of the Optimal Team. And today we are talking with healthcare attorney Joe Hess. And Joe, welcome. Thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Yes, yes, yes. So, as we've gone through the last couple of weeks, we've really talked about, the different aspects of the team. So far, we've talked to a wealth management, advisor, and we've also talked with a lender and the importance of what that is to the doctor and the dental team or the healthcare team. So, as far as a lawyer goes, as far as an attorney goes, tell us a little bit about what you do as a healthcare attorney.
Yeah. Thanks again for having me on. Again,
Yes.
Joe Hess of Joe Hess Law Firm. So I specialize in the healthcare space, primarily dental. There's just more of it. And I work from the beginning stages of a dentist career to a startup or an acquisition all the way through to the sales. So I deal a lot with dental acquisitions. I deal a lot with dental associate employment agreements, and then the real estate that's associated with it too, as part of a lease or a sale that's involved in the acquisition.
Okay, okay, sounds good. So how did you fall into healthcare? Did you pick it? How did you end up in that in this arena?
Yeah, so prior to going out on my own, I worked for two large national law firms, so multi-office locations across the country. And early in my career, I got introduced to the healthcare space, specifically some dental acquisition deals, DSO deals, and private sales as well. And really liked it. Really liked the personal aspect of it, and noticed that there weren't a ton of attorneys that specialize in that space. I mean, there are some, but there's not a lot. I think there was a void there that I tried to fill, and so I really started focusing more on making the proper connections in the healthcare community, in the dental community, meaning the right CPAs, the right lenders, the right brokers. And then from there, it kind of just exploded, and that's all that I do now for the last 5 years. That's all I've been focusing on.
Okay, keeps you busy.
Keeps me very busy.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
So as far as a doctor, not it's not required by law necessarily to have a lawyer on retainer for a doc. Is that correct?
Correct. Nope. There's
Yeah.
no such requirement.
Yeah, so somebody could come into all of these things, these acquisitions and all of these different transactions that you just talked about a minute ago. But why is it important for somebody to, have somebody like you on their team? What does that prevent them from? What is the advantage of that?
Yeah, I mean, just taking the dental industry specifically, I mean, they're good at the clinical aspect, right? I mean, they're good at
Yes.
fixing teeth, right? So much like I wouldn't Google, how do I extract a tooth on myself or how do I do a filling on myself? The flip side of that is that a dentist shouldn't be Googling necessarily how to handle an acquisition or pulling an employment handbook or an associate agreement off the internet, right? You never know what you're going to get. With somebody like myself, who specializes in that space, I see it. I see so many deals per year, anywhere from 60 to 70 transactions per year, 50 employment agreements or associate agreements per year. So I have seen it all. And just having somebody like myself who specializes in this space is just a huge benefit for understanding what's standard and market, at least from a
Yes.
legal perspective in the industry. And also I can serve as a buffer in any sort of negotiation, right? So I can take the emotion out of it. For example, when you're dealing with a seller who's owned their practice for a really long time, there's going to be an emotional aspect of it, right? Because that's been their baby for a long time, and now they're getting rid of it. So, and rightfully so, it could get very emotional, and that's where I come in and can handle the negotiation, the editing of the documents, and interface with the other side.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it makes perfect sense, and I take that into what we do here at Crossroads, which is, you can go use TurboTax, you can go to H&R Block, you can go to, a lot of other places, but having a dental specific and somebody that's an expert in that area that knows the business,
Yeah,
it's obviously a huge help and a benefit to the doc. So, and
absolutely.
ultimately, if we can keep them chair side and taking care of their patients, taking care of their practice, that's where they're going to serve the best. So,
Yeah, yeah.
when yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt
No,
you there.
no, absolutely. It's listen, when you're just taking the acquisition as an example, when you're buying or selling, I mean, it's one of the most important decisions you're going to be making in your professional business career, as well as one of the most financially expensive or
Yes.
lucrative. So you want to make sure that you're hiring the right team, and surrounding yourself with the right team in that process.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, all right. So, what are some things that a doctor should look for in the right fit? How do they find the right attorney to represent them?
Yeah. Well, as a starting point, find somebody who specializes in healthcare. That's number one. Number two, you can take it a step further in finding people who specialize in dental, like myself.
Hmm.
Um, uh, that's a good starting point. And then from there, it's a personality fit too, I think. Have some conversations with your prospective attorneys. See how many deals they've done per year. See
Hmm.
the variety of deals. Have they done if you're selling to a DSO, how many DSO deals has that attorney done per year,
Good
or
point.
or in his or her career? So just kind of interview them, right? Get an understanding of their experience in the industry, how long they've been in it, and also ask what their fees are. Do they structure it as an hourly rate? Do they charge, or do they charge a flat fee? Right. So it's that I've seen it done both ways. So just get an understanding of, what type of experience that attorney has in your specific industry, dental, and then see what the fees are.
Yeah, sounds good. Great advice. Great advice. So, right now, as far as in the healthcare industry and specifically with dental, what are kind of the pressing issues as it pertains to healthcare law? What are those hot topics right now that maybe an everyday doctor might not be aware of that they should be aware of?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think hot button industry topics are still relevant over the last couple of years. One is the DSO,
Hmm.
so dental service organization, right? Private
Yes.
equity groups. They're still big. They're still purchasing. So I'm still doing a handful of those deals per year. And you just got to understand when you go into those situations, those deals are going to be more restrictive on what you can or
Hmm.
can't do. But in return, you're probably going to get a higher payout. So I think that's an issue that I see coming up. Non-competes and non-solicits are always hot button topics in this industry. What is standard, what is reasonable, and that's going to depend on your location within your state. Are you in a city area, suburban area versus a rural area? As well as compensation. Compensation has been a hot button topic too for what are practices paying associates.
Yes.
Percentage of collections are associates now getting guaranteed minimums, which I see all the time.
Okay.
Again, it just goes back to having somebody in your team who really understands what's standard and what's market, so that way you can offer or respond to appropriate requests for those things.
Yeah, that makes sense. Once again, that's great advice, great input there. So now, as I started this, we are talking about the optimal team. So we're wealth management, a lender, practice management consultant, those different things like that, a CPA.
Yeah.
How do you, as the attorney, integrate, or communicate with the other aspects of that team?
Yeah.
Where can they help you? Where can you help them? In the process that ultimately helps the doctor.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So, just give an example. So, if I get engaged by a dentist who's looking to acquire practice, right? If I'm the first point of contact, my first question is always, okay, you got a practice, great. You got a potential purchase price figured out? Yes. Okay. Have you run that by your CPA? No, I don't have a CPA yet. So then that goes off, light bulb goes off in my head is, okay, well, you got to, for starting point, you got to, before you really engage me, before we go any further, you want to run that valuation or that purchase price by the CPA. So that's an easy introduction, for me and connection there, as well as from a lending standpoint too. If they don't have a lender lined up, I'll introduce him or her to preferred dental lenders in the industry. It's a small, as you know, it's a small community professionally once
Yes.
you get in it. So once you start understanding who the main players are, who are the good CPAs, who are the good lenders, um, you can make those introductions from the get-go, and it just really makes for a smooth working relationship. And then throughout the deal, right, during an acquisition, I'll be interfacing with the CPA on allocation for an asset purchase agreement, or interfacing with the bank on getting all the lender requirements in.
Okay, yeah, it sounds good. Another question I just thought of is, you know, Crossroads has clients all across the country.
Yeah.
Are you limited to who you can help? Are attorneys limited to state laws or, state licenses? How does that work?
So, I mean, every state has a requirement to get a law license, right? Like,
Mhm.
I sit in Michigan, so I have a Michigan law license.
Yes.
However, most states have reciprocity rules that if you've been in practice for a certain number of years, you can get reciprocity in their state. You can apply
Okay.
to get a license in their state. So that allows you to cross state lines and work in other states. I also have relationships with co-counsels and other attorneys in other states. So generally speaking, I work in almost every state in the country right now.
Okay. Yeah, that's great. I thought that was important for people to understand that,
Yeah.
if maybe you're listening to this and you're out on the West Coast, you think you have to have somebody that's also on the West Coast, but obviously they could contact you and if not necessarily utilize your services,
Yeah.
you could help them get connected with somebody else, that would be that's that like-minded mentality. So that sounds great. What can people listening to this implement today from our conversation? Is there anything that they could go and do, and like they don't have a lawyer, or is there anything that they need to be looking out for in case they don't, or if they do, what could they take from this conversation today?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good idea to excuse me, to have an attorney on standby if you need it. Like
Mhm.
I'm not on retainer with a lot of my clients, but I serve as
Yes.
outside counsel to a ton of dental practices across the country. So if something comes up where they're hiring a new dentist, right? They can call me and they know me and they know I'm on standby. They know I can create an agreement for them. Or if they're hiring staff, or if they need to redo their or do a lease negotiation or renegotiation on their place. So having a trusted dental attorney on your team, now you're not paying that individual necessarily every month. You don't have to retain him or her every month, but having that relationship so that you can pick up
Yes.
the phone when you need him or her is incredibly important.
Yes. Yeah, and that's a great advice is if you don't have that relationship right now with an attorney, you need to make sure you have it. So I do appreciate your time today. As we continue to go through the optimal team, and I know that we've worked together on
Yeah.
clients and had great success. So we appreciate what you do for the people that have chosen, Crossroads as their CPA firm. And we wish you all the best, and we'll continue to have this great relationship. So thank you very much.
Great. Yeah, really appreciate being on.